Back in 2020, when The Last of Us Part 2 officially came out, there were tons of gamers who were furious over the story decisions that they were making. They were killing off main characters, going in the direction of having strong, independent female leads, and while people liked Ellie, Abby was not a fan favorite by any stretch of the means. And now that these events have finally occurred in The Last of Us Season 2, their viewership is tanking, and people are just as furious as they were a few years ago. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, what I find most hilarious about the situation is that back in 2020, the mainstream media was attacking gamers, saying we were sexists and we were misogynists and we were homophobes simply because we didn't like the fact that Ellie was now the lead character. It wasn't the fact that she was a woman that was the problem. It wasn't the fact that she was a lesbian that was the problem. The problem was the fact that they killed off Joel, the main character, in order to make way for two strong, independent women. It just wasn't what people wanted to see, and his death really served no purpose, at least in my and millions of other gamers' opinions. But now that these events are finally taking place within the show, there are just as many normal moviegoers and TV watchers who are upset, which is so just hilarious because Neil Druckmann had previously said that it was toxic gamers that were just upset about this, but clearly it's not just the gamers who don't like this decision. So it says, like him or hate him, Pedro Pascal's portrayal of Joel Miller helped anchor The Last of Us as one of HBO's standout successes. But just 2 episodes into its second season, the showrunners made the bold decision to maintain one of the original video game's more controversial decisions and end the character. This sparked not only controversy, but a sharp decline in The Last of Us Season 2's viewership. Now, I think that we all knew that this was going to happen, that when you killed off such an important character and such a beloved character, that you were going to face backlash, whether that was discussion on social media, whether that was scores tanking, or people just abandoning the show altogether. It says the moment arrived in episode 2, Through the Valley, which aired on April 20th. In a near frame-for-frame adaptation of the original video game, Joel is ambushed just outside of Jackson, Wyoming, and taken out in an unexpectedly swift and jarring sequence. Now, the thing is that video gamers still had it worse because the video game itself was much more graphic, and it just hurt a heck of a lot more because in the show, they can't have the whole entire season be Abby backstory. They had to try to get a lot of her backstory out before she ended Joel because it's the only way that you were going to keep people mildly interested, but that hasn't worked. It says for audiences unfamiliar with the source material, the scene landed like a gut punch. The numbers show that many viewers may have purposefully avoided the second episode after hearing about the brutal scene, and many others didn't want to return the following week. According to Programming Insider, the season 2 premiere pulled in 938,000 linear viewers in the US. Episode 2 saw that number fall to just 643,000, a staggering 31.5% drop. Episode 3 posted a partial recovery with 768,000 viewers, but it still trailed the premiere by over 170,000. So we're still not talking about it being off by 5 or 10,000 viewers, right? We are still talking about hundreds of thousands of people checking out of this because they're upset with the decisions that were made by Naughty Dog and the writers of the show. Now, of course, there are people taking to platforms like Metacritic to voice how unhappy they are. Right now, Metacritic's score for Season 2 is sitting at a 3.7 with 542 user ratings, which is just abysmal, just as bad as the video game, which is funny. But according to the mainstream media, if you do not like this, if you go and leave a negative review simply because you're not a fan of the storytelling, well, you are a troll. Here's an article by Collider, which of course is just another hit piece on gamers and TV watchers. Trolls will find ways to circumvent the system no matter how hard platforms try and send them back to their caves. Most recently, they crawled out to spread venom against The Last of Us Season 2 based on the acclaimed video game The Last of Us Part 2, which suffered similarly upon its release. So if the scores were bad years ago, and the scores are bad now, I would be able to deduce that people just are not fans of the story that took place. It's like if Game of Thrones season 8 released today. Yeah, when it released 6 years ago, people weren't a fan of it, and people still wouldn't be a fan of it today. The first season of the series was critically acclaimed, and it initially seemed like season 2 was being met with similar warmth, but despite the positive reviews that it opened to a few weeks ago, the audience reception, or as one should point out, the troll reaction, has been quite negative. You are not going to convince me that in 2020, thousands to millions of trolls went to social media, talked about how much they dislike this, took to platforms like Metacritic and left negative scores for the game, and those same exact people are still showing up to do that same exact thing. It is fucking pathetic that the access media will constantly spew straight up lies in order to push a narrative just to defend a series that they personally like. It's fine if you like The Last of Us Part 2 video game. It's fine if you like The Last of Us Season 2. But clearly it's not just trolls who are review bombing that don't like this. It's millions of gamers and TV watchers who are just not happy with the story decision. For me, the problem isn't that they killed off a main character, because I like things like Game of Thrones, right? And Ned dies. But the problem lies in that Ned's death felt purposeful. It felt important to the plot, whereas in something like The Last of Us, it felt very spur of the moment. It didn't feel intentional. It felt like they just needed to kill off a character, and they were like, oh, hey, I guess Joel won. It says, though, whether these folks should be taken seriously is another matter, but the fact that they're able to manipulate audience scores on platforms, despite efforts taken to prevent this behavior, is a matter of concern. You mean, on a platform where people are supposed to leave their reviews, you don't like the fact that they're leaving reviews just because you don't agree with the scores they're leaving, so you're going to turn around and call them racists and sexists and trolls. That's absurd. They talk about how review bombing is largely targeted towards minorities. No, it's just targeted towards bad actors and bad writing and bad pieces of content all around. So, of course, right now, the mainstream media is in cope and seethe mode, not particularly shocking, and we do know that there are viewers who are deciding to stray away from this series. Now, as the season continues, will the viewership go back up? Potentially, but ultimately, only time will tell, and while we don't have those numbers now, the ones we do have are not looking so hot for HBO and Naughty Dog. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.